I think I should just keep it rolling the whole time. What's up, everyone? We're back. We're back again. Yes, we are live at Xceletate here in Grapevine, Texas. This is a real estate networking event where people from all across the state of Texas come to learn about real estate investing. And today, I have a great friend of mine here, actually, that I just ran into. Dan Diaz is here, sub-2 expert, owner finance expert, massively successful, well-known all across the state of Texas, and the leader, co-leader of School of Sharks.
Yes.
Yes. What's up, bro?
Oh, man, it's awesome to be here. I'm glad to see you. I hope everything is doing great. We're starting a new year.
We are, man.
2024.
New year, new me.
It's a leap year, so it's got to be awesome.
It's going to be awesome. It's going to be a great year, man. It's going to be a great year for real estate. We know that interest rates are supposed to go down this year. Supposed to.
That's what they tell us.
We'll see what they say. But we already see the market kind of heating up a little bit just of the thought of interest rates going down. How is it affecting your game in real estate already?
It really is affecting, because for those of you who don't know, the bulk of my business really is helping self-employed individuals who need owner financing, and they're trying to buy their dream home. They can't qualify for traditional mortgage.
Exactly.
And we'll owner finance any home in Texas for them. $200,000 up to $2 million, as long as it's a site-built single-family owner-occupied home, we'll do it. But our interest rates are connected or associated with prime rate.
Yeah.
So, last year, 2 years ago, when prime rate was in the 2 and 3%, we were doing 7 and 8%. However, now that it's creeping up to the 8 1/4, 8.5, even 8 3/4, we're having to creep up to the 13% range. And so it does make a challenge, because all of a sudden they might not be able to afford the $450,000 home. Maybe they have to go down to $400,000 or $375,000, and maybe they don't want to do that. So there is a slight impact in what people can afford, and of course our buyer pool. We're seeing it. We'd love to see interest rates go down, because then our interest rates can go down as well.
Yeah. So for those who don't know what you do owner financing in a really unique way. Why don't you explain how your process in working with you on purchasing a home works? Because it's very different from the traditional owner finance kind of a deal.
Yeah. So when most self-employed folks want to buy a home, if they have been successful, which if they want to buy a home, they've been successful, they probably saved a lot of money on taxes. They probably reduced their profit points as much as possible, as every American should. I think it is our American duty to pay as little taxes as possible.
The tax laws are written that way.
That's exactly correct. However, when they take their tax returns to a mortgage broker, they look at the mortgage broker and they say, hey, how much of a house can I afford? And they're like, oh, well, you've got $1 million coming in, but on your P&L, it looks like you reported $10,000. It looks like you are eligible for food stamps, so you can't buy a house. And then they're like, okay, well, what are my solutions? And most mortgage brokers usually tell them, well, you got two options, really. Option number one, you pay a bunch of money to Uncle Sam for 2 years in a row, so that, quote unquote, your income looks where it needs to be. Or you go the owner finance route. And the owner finance route, you can buy a house today. Basically, owner financing in the traditional model is you find a seller who's willing to seller finance their property to you. Now, the problem for successful self-employed folks under this model is that most homes that are available owner finance, I'm not trying to beat down anyone, but they're not the nicest homes. They're not the best neighborhoods. They're not really at price points that successful business owners would like to see.
Because that's kind of the owner finance game, though. Mm-hmm. They're looking for people who can't traditionally qualify for loans.
Correct.
And they buy, homes either from wholesalers or they find the deals themselves with their marketing that need rehab. They don't rehab them all the way.
They don't?
They fix them up to where they're livable, rent ready, we like to call it in the industry. And then they owner finance it to get that long-term money without having to manage the property. But like you were saying, your game's a little bit different than that. Yeah.
So what we do is we say, hey, we get it. The traditional owner finance model kind of sucks for the successful business owner.
Yeah, exactly.
These are people who are living in nice neighborhoods. They're probably already paying $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 in rent. They're going to private schools. They're sending their kids to private schools. These are affluent individuals. The traditional model sucks for them. So what can we do? although I'm not Wells Fargo, the approach is very similar. I say, well, let's forget about the house. There's 10,000 homes for sale on the MLS. Let's just figure out how big of a home you could afford. And let's say we determine they could afford a $400,000, $500,000, $600,000, $700,000, $800,000 home. We'll give them a pre-approval, just like any bank would, even though I'm not a bank. We let them pick exactly the home that suits their likes or desires, and now the investor's pocketbook. We will buy the home and turn around and owner finance it to them, obviously at terms that they're already happy with and that they had previously approved. So then all of a sudden they're not limited by the homes that are available with owner financing. They can buy anything up to $1 million, $2 million if they'd like.
That's an awesome program. That's an awesome.
It really is.
So how do you determine the eligibility?
Great question. Yeah, great question. So two, just like most people stand on 2 legs and 2 feet, our approvals, our investment approvals stand on 2 legs and 2 feet. One, your initial investment, which most people will require 20 to 30%. And two, your ability to repay. Now, I think this is where we really shine because we take our underwriting approach is very similar to what I like to call common sense underwriting. Hey, I get it. You lied to Uncle Sam. You say you're broke.
They didn't lie. They didn't lie to Uncle Sam.
Yeah. Well, some did.
Oh.
But not all.
Don't do that.
But not all. But hey, I get it. On your tax returns, it looks like you're not making a whole lot of money. But what is your real world ability to repay? What is your real approach? How much can you afford as a business owner? And I'll give you a real world example. If they're already paying $3,000 in rent, why can't they pay a $3,000 or $4,000 mortgage?
Exactly.
It's not a big jump.
No, it's not.
And they might not get approved for a $3,000 mortgage because on paper, through a traditional mortgage, they're not making a whole lot of money. But again, common sense underwriting is really the approach.
Gotcha.
So initial investment and ability to repay.
Which is different because, like you said, you're not a bank. And you can actually look at, okay, this person can afford this much. If you can afford $3,000, you can afford $3,700, and you can qualify for this. And on top of that, they have 20 to 30% of the down payment, which is a bigger down payment that you would pay than bank. But you're getting the ability to purchase a home when you otherwise couldn't.
And I don't know if the audience heard, but it's 20 to 30% total initial investment. What I mean by that is that it's not just the down payment, it is down payment, closing cost, appraisal, prepaids, attorney's fees, filing fees, origination, application, earnest money, option money, the whole 9 yards. And it sort of allows the average person to self-pre-qualify themselves.
Gotcha.
If they don't know their risk factor, they're looking for a $300,000 home. Do I have $60,000 to $90,000 to close it? If I do, check mark on the first requirement. Easy breezy.
Awesome. So that's the front end for the consumer. Mm-hmm. Let's talk about the back end just a little bit. Let's just touch on it. How does this model, running this kind of business, compare to running something like a traditional buy and hold, kind of holding doors kind of a business? Yeah.
So a traditional investment model is what I call asset driven. You buy the asset first. What you do with it, it's your problem, but you're buying the asset first. The advantages of that model is that if you're smart and you know how to negotiate, you're probably going to buy it at a discount. So you always have a little bit of equity. Equity is always a great protection. I don't have that advantage. We're buying off the MLS. These are beautiful homes. We buy them at full fair market value. So I don't have the advantage of equity. However, the disadvantage to starting with the house first is that you got to prep it for the market, which has holding costs and expenses. And then you got to look for a unique buyer, or if you're going to be holding it as a rental, somebody to rent it. So you do get the equity, but you don't get immediate performance of the asset. I, on the other hand, don't get equity, but I get immediate performance on the asset. And I also have a highly committed individual. We've got about $52, $53 million in assets of mortgages. That translates to about 142, 143 mortgages, and we have 0 foreclosures.
That's a great record.
We are at 0 foreclosures, knock on wood. We have a couple of lates, and we have had a couple of deeds in lieu, but no foreclosures. And I really think that's a testament. And I tell the buyers all the time, there's no reason why you should ever have to foreclose. You have equity in the property. Just go ahead and list it. Be realistic about your circumstances. at least you're going to break even. You might make a little bit of money, but there is no reason you should ever have to go to foreclosure when you've got 20 to 30% equity position on the property.
And some people get behind sometimes. It's part of the business. But
It does.
You're right. If you have the means, know your financial circumstances, know that freight train is coming, list that property so you can get either your equity break even or make a little bit of cash and move on. So, understanding owner financing. For those who don't know kind of like what owner financing is, explain it in layman's terms.
You get to be the bank.
Yeah.
That's probably the best way to look at it. So, owner financing, substitute the word owner and plug in the word bank. What does a bank do if you're doing bank financing? They're providing the money, they're providing a loan so that you can buy a house. In the model of owner financing, you already own the home, but in a way, you're providing the loan to the buyer, who now becomes a borrower, so that they can purchase your home. It is a purchase. It's going to be under their name if it's done right and legally and ethically. The house is going to be under their name. They're going to be responsible for taxes, insurance, maintenance, repairs. They will have all the protections of a borrower, meaning that you can't just kick them out with a 3-day notice like a tenant. You have to go through a foreclosure process, which in Texas could take as much as 41 days.
Yep.
You have to get attorneys involved. So owner financing is essentially you being the bank, and instead of collecting rent, you collect interest. Now, the beautiful part about it is that unlike a tenant situation and a landlord situation, you're no longer responsible for the big T's. Tenants, toilets, trash, termites, and turnover. Every dollar that comes in as an interest payment is a dollar that you can spend. Unlike when you're a landlord, you get $1 in rent and it's like, well, I got to save this for taxes, I got to save this for insurance, I got to save this for repairs, I got to save this when it's vacant, I got to save this for the plumber, I got to save this for the roofer.
Exactly.
It doesn't work like that. Every dollar that you get in interest as an owner financier is a dollar that you can spend.
That's a very lucrative business model.
It is.
If you do it right.
If you do it right.
If you do it right.
If not, it's horrible.
Yeah, no, I've seen some people, train wreck, I won't say any names, but with the owner finance model in their business because they did not know how to manage it properly. Last question on owner financing. Mm-hmm. So when let's say you do an owner finance deal and somebody buys that house owner finance, can you sell that note that you create for those who don't know?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question because most people understand that if they own a house, they own an asset. Mm-hmm. That's a pretty easy concept to understand. If I want to pull money out of that house, I go refinance that house. Or I sell that house and collect the proceeds. It's very, very similar role model when you own a note. When you own the note, you own a receivable. That is an asset on your books. I'm not an accountant, but that is an asset on your books. And that asset can be taken to a local community bank and you can borrow against it. You can also sell it. Both options are absolutely possible. Very similar to selling a house. Might have to sell it a little bit on a discount. You can't refinance 100% of the note, just like you can't refinance 100% of the house.
Just
but both things can be done.
Kind of like banks that sell mortgages.
100%.
Exactly. Awesome. Well, Dan, I know you have to speak here in a moment. I appreciate you sitting down with me for about 15 minutes.
My pleasure. Thank you for pulling me over.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And for those people that want to work with you, how can they get a hold of you?
Oh, great question. So look me up on social media, Dancito Gancito. You can find me on Facebook as well as IG. But look me up at schoolofsharks.com.
That's the next thing I was going to touch on, guys. Dan is an educator in real estate investment, and they have a community, School of Sharks. I myself have attended multiple events and have been a part of that group at one point, and it's fantastic for all levels, whether you're new, experienced, and very experienced. They have education for all levels, so please go check them out.
Schoolofsharks.com. First 7 days are free. Just go ahead and sign up. And it's just a very simple model of online education with a ton of experts and a beautiful community.
Awesome. Thanks so much, brother. Appreciate
Thank you so much. We'll be seeing you.
Yeah, good to see you.
You guys have a good one. Take care. We'll see y'all.